In this navigation Part 2 layout tutorial, I am going to dive deeper into how the navigation bars are set up in Layout. As we discussed in the navigation Part 1 video, Layout comes with two types of navs, a legacy and builder nav. When we create a new site, the default will be set to legacy, and if we want to customize our nav, control the structure of our nav, or integrate any custom plugins, we need to switch to builder. Let's take a look first at a legacy nav structure. The legacy nav follows the Bootstrap navbar layout, except that it is broken up and defined among our wrapper, menu, item, brand, and variables tabs. Let's put our legacy nav next to the Bootstrap navbar layout and compare the two. If we look at line 1, right here, this matches the first line of the Bootstrap layout, except that we have placed variables in our HTML. Curly braces indicate variables. These variables are defined in our variable tab. Let's look, for example, at the nav class variable we have in this first line. So going to the variables tab, we see that the classes here match the classes defined in the Bootstrap layout plus native layout classes. Next, we can see that we have the brand div. We are actually going to add the specific details about the brand in our brand tab. We can see here that the brand for this site is going to be text, which we will define in our variables. The brand could also be an image, and the setup for that is commented out on this line above. We define the brand class, which matches the brand class in the Bootstrap layout. We also define our brand text. Next, we can see the Navbar Toggler, which is a button, as it is over here. We can also see the data toggle collapse, as we can see over here. Next, surrounding our UL is the collapse and navbar collapse div. We can see this if we look here. These match. Then we have our UL. If we look at the root UL, we can see the matching classes. From here, we have our list items. Having the items in curly braces now means that we have to define what an item looks like. And each time a new item is created, it will be inserted and follow the same structure we define in our item tab. So let's go to our item tab. So if we look here, we can see an item ID first that is auto-generated by layout. We will also see variables like item li class. If we go to our variables and look at our item li, we will see nav item, just like it is in Bootstrap layout. If we look at the a class, it'll be nav link, just as it is here. The next part of the Bootstrap layout is the dropdown. We define this in our menu tab, and just as we have seen in the previous sections, the variables will match what is in Bootstrap. We will place a link to this Bootstrap documentation in the article so that you can take a little more time getting to know the setup, getting familiar with it, and comparing it to the Bootstrap layout on your own. Now, as I mentioned before, if I don't want to use the default nav that follows the structure of the Bootstrap navbar, I want to change this from Legacy to Builder under the Super tab. If we go back to this nav, we will see that the Bootstrap structure we just discussed is still there. That's because the Builder nav comes preloaded with this setup so that there is something there. If we go over to our Expo template, we can check out a Builder navigation that we customized using the Navic plugin documentation. For this navigation, we needed to download a Navic CSS, a Navic JS file in our uploads, and set them both to global. We also needed to upload a Navic SCSS file. You can see that this setup looks very different. The wrapper, menu, and item setup are all different. There is no brand because in this particular setup, we have a logo section, which is the brand in this case. You'll note a directory file linked to this navigation. We also don't need to define as many variables because these classes are defined in our CSS and Sass files. Hopefully, you now have a better understanding of how the Builder and Legacy navigation works in Layout.